Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. I've not been on for a little bit, but never mind. Today's job, bit of a strange one. It's not something I've ever done before. About a year ago now, I bought a 1973 Dodge B300 van that's got a Chrysler 360 LA motor in it. It originally started out life as a motorhome. The guy I bought it from took all the motorhome body off of it and he made it into like a flatbed, but he did it all in wood, really poor job, so I bought it with the intention of making a nice steel bed for it, doing a bulkhead for the back because it used to be a through cab, you know, making it a nice looking thing. That's all going fine. I've actually painted the truck now. The pictures I'll put on somewhere or other if I can figure out how to do it. It's now blue and white. It used to be like a Land Rover cream. It looked foul. I didn't video that because, to be perfectly honest, if you want to know how to do bodywork really well, don't look how I do it. I do it how I do it, and to be fair, it does look fine, but there's probably better people to watch than me for doing bodywork. Now, as I've been driving around in it and doing various jobs with it, it always seemed, well, it never seemed to go as well as it really should. So, while I had a minute, I did a compression test on it. And it got one completely dead hole, 0 psi compression, and two others that were quite low. So I very quickly pulled the heads off. It's a real simple job on that thing. Turns out, basically, all of the exhaust valves are in very poor condition. One of them was completely, wasn't even seating, and one inlet wasn't great either. So out of 16 valves, 7 can go back in. That's what I've worked out. So while I've got the heads off, they're sat just here, I've actually run round them, ported them a little bit. I didn't video that because I didn't think to be perfectly honest. So I've done just a bit of gas flowing, nothing too serious. Uncle Tony's Garage has got a great video on that, so go and look over there if you want to see it. But I'll bring the camera in now, and you will be able to see one of the, I don't know what you call it, but basically these engines had a heat crossover in one of the exhaust ports on each cylinder head, and it would literally pass exhaust gases through the inlet manifold. The symptoms that leads to is, I'm sure they had great ideas about doing it for emissions and one thing and another, but the last thing you want, I mean, people with turbochargers know this, you go to great lengths to make sure that the air going into your engine is as cold as possible, so the very last thing you want to be doing is passing exhaust gas straight through your intake. It's actually like a tube, for the want of a better word, in the casting, where it crosses over. That's got to go, I don't want that, and that's quite a common thing to do. But what it does mean is you've got to weld to cast iron. I'm actually a very competent welder, but I have never welded to cast iron before. Not something I've ever needed to do, to be perfectly honest. So what I'm going to do today, it would appear the best way of doing it is to stick weld it. That's fine, we can stick weld. I've even been on the internet and bought, these are really expensive as well. They're basically on eBay, these were listed as cast iron welding rods. I have never used them before. I've cheated because I've already done one of the cylinder heads. But I'm going to bring it in now and I'm going to show you what we're going to be blocking and, well, how to go about blocking the heat crossover on a Chrysler LA motor. So I'll bring the camera in. Okay, so we're on the bench now. So this is one of the cylinder heads. It's actually upside down. Ignore that, that's just holding it propped up with one of the valves. So what we're looking at now are two of the intake ports, this being the face of the head, this being where all the rockers go. We've got this curved piece here, which we'll talk about in a moment, and then we've got this hole here. This is a hole. If I were to be able to poke my finger all the way through there, I'll get a camera, what happens is, it goes straight down there in the casting and comes out in the exhaust port. So as the exhaust valve opens and releases the exhaust gas, some of it goes to the other side of the head down the exhaust manifold, and some of it comes up here, and it's exactly the same on the other manifold as well. And this is that crossover I'm talking about in the intake manifold. This is what feeds it. This here is just a big open space, so that basically the exhaust, it keeps the heat away from the inlet ports as far as I can see. So we're not interested in this. What we've got to do is block that up. Now, there's all kinds of myths on the internet. I'm sure some of them work. Cut a beer can up and put that underneath when you bolt down the inlet manifold, and that'll cover it. A million and one things. People say you can MIG to it. There's all sorts of little bodges people have done to block it up. What I'm going to try and do, and like I say, I've already done one. It's sat just there in the back. Get yourself some just regular steel. This was 2.5mm. I cut this out of a piece of angle. Make it the right shape, and we're going to put it in there. It's quite a tight fit. I'm actually going to have to move the camera to get it to go in and tap it in. And what I found on the other head is you need to get it recessed. Don't put it flush. Get it in as basically as far as you can get it. Doesn't matter. And then what we do is we're going to run a weld round it with the cast iron welding rods, clean it up, and then see how we've done. With my vast experience of welding about 2 inches on that head in the cast iron, I'll tell you now, it's absolutely horrible stuff to weld. The rods don't advertise to be a strong weld or a weld that penetrates deeply. It's literally just to make something stick or to repair a crack or something like that. Don't ever rely on this stuff for anything load bearing. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to fit this in and I'll turn the camera back on so you can see it. Okay, so here we are now with that piece of metal. I think it was 2.5mm thick. That's put in. It's a nice. It sort of fits on corners and edges. This is a casting, so it isn't a perfect sort of a hole that goes through. It's a bit rough, and that's sort of wedged up. But as you can see, I've got that set in there, a good 3 or 4mm. It's down inside the hole. That's just because when I did the other one over there, the first head, I had it a bit further up, and obviously this needs to be flat to get the inlet manifold on. And it was just everything. I had to do a lot of grinding. So what I've done is I've just recessed it a little bit. Now, what I found when using these rods, I thought wrongly, when you're welding, you would want to be on the nice metal, on the mild steel, pushing it in to the cast iron like that. These rods, although it's a horrible weld, if you're after neatness, look somewhere else. They prefer to start on the cast iron and flow into the mild steel. Go slow. These are 2.5mm rods. I've got about 90 amps on them. Go slowly. The slag on there looks absolutely abysmal. You'll be convinced it's porous. Just take your time. Be very deliberate where you're putting it. Don't go too fast, and you'll get a weld out of it. Now, everywhere else seems to preheat the cast. Unless I were to get an acetylene torch out and try and get this entire head red hot, I don't see how I can do that. So what I've been doing is doing a bit, stopping, letting it cool, then work around. Just try and let it normalise itself, if you know what I mean. And in between any coats, obviously I'm chiselling the slag off. I've actually got an electric wire brush in there. To clean the inside of this port, I just used the tungsten carbide burr in the die grinder and took some out. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So I'm going to fire the welder up now, and I'll show you what it looks like after, but do not expect miracles because it doesn't look nice at all. Okay, so here's a close-up of this abortion of a weld. It's actually, to be fair, it's totally fine. I haven't ground it on purpose so you can see what the weld looks like. It actually laid okay. It's not porous at all. The mistake I made on the first one over there was to weld, as I said before, is to weld to the mild steel and try and pull the weld into the cast. This one I went around that, where I got the recess, I started on the top, on the cast iron, and pushed down into it, and to be fair, it has actually really got it. So all that's left to do with this now is grind this up so it's flat. One thing I'm keen to not do here is keep on welding it in. I don't want to put tons and tons of heat in the centre of this thing. Focus. Yeah, if I start pumping heat in like you can't believe it, it's going to get this area incredibly quick, hot, and everything else is going to be cold. That's when you start getting cracks in things. So, I mean, now I welded this literally a few seconds ago, and the cast iron has already pulled the heat away. so that's fine. If I wanted to, on the other head, I got a standard 6013 rod and ran that over the top here to fill in this gap. I thought about that afterwards. Basically, I'm not going to do that again for the same reason. I think it's just too much heat. This metal here is 2.5mm thick, and it's not in like a corrosive environment, it's just stopping some pressure. So I'll grind that up so we can see what it looks like, and then we'll call that it. And there it is. That's just flattened off, that's ground down. It's not supposed to be pretty. It's got a weld all the way around the inside, welding that cast to the mild steel plate. That is not a gap, that's just where it's basically it's side cut. But don't worry too much about it. The idea of this is there's going to be something sat over the top of here anyway, you will never see it. So it's more important to not put tons of heat in it than it is to make it look neat. If you look at the other one, wherever it's gone, up there, I did actually spend some time on that and flush it all off and all the rest of it. And I thought about it afterwards and thought, you know what, don't bother doing that. Just nobody's ever going to see it. So I'll tell you what, let's get right in on that so we can see it. Go on, focus. Focus. Is it going to do it? Yeah, there we go. Look at that. So as you get, the weld isn't actually terrible. I put two runs up here. That's why there's a bit of an overflow. And then all the way around, it's fine. That is not going anywhere. That is how you block off the exhaust crossover on a Chrysler 360, or any other one for that matter. So thanks for watching. Subscribe, look at the other videos, and I will see you next time.